Back in '47, I was across the road from a person that had bees, and I was always interested in that type of insect. And I'd go over every time I'd see him go over working with his bees. He would go over with bald head, little t-shirt. I would go over and watch him as he worked with his bees, and naturally with me being a young boy, I would get one in my hair, and of course they would zap me, so you go about your business and walk away from them. But I was always interested every time he worked with his bees. This is what the honey looks like once it's pulled out. That's the honey that's pulled out from the foundation. I just took 2 or 3 that I didn't extract just to show, because I knew this was going to happen. But there's about 4 to 5 pounds of honey on that. So one time he said, "Do you like bees?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to watch them and see you working with them." And he said, "Well, sometime you get a place where you can have your own bees." He said, "I'll give you some bees." My second wife, she wanted to do something for me, so I had a lot of pictures laying around, and she ran across them, and I think I showed her some. She said, "Oh, I want to do something with them." So she did. She took and made this little poster up for me, which I think is very nice. And years back when I started into bees, I had 35 colonies behind the garden. That was way back by the woods. This is the life cycle of a honeybee. All the eggs, the first 3 days, all the eggs that the queen lays, they're all the same. After the 3rd day, they start changing a little bit. And the queen, she usually emerges and hatches out in 16 days. The smoke just calms them down. They know that something's going to rob them. And so what they're going in there and gorging themselves with all the honey that they can think they're going to take, because they don't want it all taken from them, so they're going to keep some themselves. So I just use the smoke to calm them a little bit. I don't use too much, but now this one, this is a shallow also, because I had to get something on them early in the spring. They wanted to use a lot of space, so I had to use these shallows. And but that's all honey, and there's no place for them to even put any. So the idea for beekeeper is give them plenty of room, whether they need it or not. It's best for them to have plenty of room, which this hive does have. They can go up in here and pull this. They got honey there. That side's all full, but they got another side they can work with. This one, I've got to take and get this extracted, because I have and being ripe honey, you can tell honey, now that's not closed, but it's next to being capped. You can see how they're starting to cap it to get ripe honey. If it's not ripe, if you take and shake it and you don't see any liquid come out, it's pretty close. We have had what we call a colony collapse in the last few years, and it's important to try and bring these bees back, because if we don't have the bees, then all the vegetables that we eat, all the fruit trees and all the fruit that we eat, we won't have unless we have the honeybee.
Something is killing the bees, that much is certain. Britain has seen a 17% decline in the bee population over the last year. In the United States, it's around 30%. It's been dubbed colony collapse disorder. Experts say possible culprits are a pest called varroa, pesticides, climate change and loss of habitat. Now, some say, add to that the possible radiation from mobile phones. New research from scientists at Punjab University in India claims microwave radiation from mobile phones could be part of the problem. Researchers fitted mobile phones to a hive and powered them up for 2 15-minute periods each day. After 3 months, they found the bees stopped producing honey, egg production by the queen bee halved, and the size of the hives dramatically reduced.
And it's very important that we try to keep the honeybee. I know there's a lot of times when I've been called on getting bees out of a house or where they have established, and exterminators, they don't want to kill the bees. They try to find a beekeeper so they can collect these bees. See the wax on the can? I don't want that. Sometimes it's a little hard to get, so you have to weigh the means. How can I get those bees out of that house and getting the queen? She's outside somewhere. You can get the bees, but you won't get the queen. Over here, we have a queen cell, which we don't need right now, and I just have to watch. We don't need the queen cell this time of year. I don't know what you can see, but yeah, there's new brood, there's little eggs in there also. Okay, I'm going to be getting some of the frames out of the super, and then I'm going to be taking them over to where I'm going to take the electric knife. And as you see from here to here, how it's built out, and it's going to be much easier to plane off rather than it gets concave. So with this, and I got a little pin that holds that frame so it won't slide, because all that wax and honey, it makes it slippery. So I got a little pin there that keeps it from sliding. And but it makes it so much easier when it goes from frame to frame when they build it out. And I don't have a 10 frame to show you what I mean about that. But if you can just visualize, if it was concave, the knife wouldn't get all the cappings. You'd have to use a little capping scratcher. So that worked out pretty nice, that one. I'll leave that there. And I take all these and make them in a rack, because it's much easier and faster when you're uncapping, because you're not going back and forth. You're doing all one step at a time. And here we go again. And just see that little bit that they didn't bring out to the far edge. Now all this I leave and let it drain for 2 or 3 days, and then I'll turn it and let it drain some more. Then I'll take all that outside, and the bees will clean up all that wax cappings. Some of it, most of it will be all drained out, but there will be a lot of wet cappings, and the bees just love it. And this time of year, they need all that they can get, because there's not much out there for them to forage on. But that's what it looks like. That's all pure honey. Now, after the bees have cleaned this up in a day or so, I'll have a lot of dry wax like this. And this is starting to get dry, but there's still a lot of wax in there that they can get. After I let them get what they want, Then I take all the wax and then I go over here to the solar extractor. I built a solar extractor a few years ago. This is my second one. I went through a couple of them. And in the extractor, I throw all this, all that comb stuff that's in here. This is all waste right now, but I don't have one to show you. But that power of that sun is so powerful that it melts, liquefies that wax where you can actually pour it out. So that's what I do with the wax. And then, like I say, the wax, I use a lot of wax for lubricant, and it has a lot of stuff you can use with the wax. From the cappings that I had took the cappings off, I put it in the rack and it drains. That's what you see. That's a stainless steel pan, and I made this rack so to hold the frames up. But if I keep a lot in there, there's quite a few little bit of honey that gets in there. These you can take and probably see how much it's already draining in there now. That's just a few minutes time. This thing will drain quite a lot out of there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the extractor, and I'll put this one in the basket. I have a 2-frame reversible extractor, and I'll show you how that works. I'm going to go get another one, and then I'll put this right there. Now, this is a reversible extractor, and it's got a clutch on it. And when I start it, I pull the clutch up, and then I start turning the extractor, and I have to spin it up pretty far, not too fast, but just give me just enough to sling the honey out of the frames. And you'll get some it's all centrifugal force, and if one's a little heavier than the other, it's going to wobble a little bit. And I see it starting to flow down the tank. Some of the ones out on the market keep spinning, and you try to grab a handle, you'll knock yourself out. But it's got a clutch on it, and it's got a brake on it. I can stop it. Now this is a reversible. I don't have to lift that frame out like some. I just reach down in there and turn that basket and then go again. Right, now that they've been extracted, these two, the cappings, or all the honey's been extracted from it, and what we call the wet combs. So there's still a little bit of honey in there, which the bees, they'll enjoy that. So I'll take and put that back in the super, and while I'm doing that, I'll take another one and put in its place. Okay, I like to put the top bar to the hinge, and then I'll take the second one out, and it's the same way. It's just wet comb. I'll put that back and put the other one in. Okay, now we're ready to go again. I'll pull the clutch up and turn the handle. I like spinning it. I like the exercise that it gives you, and it's not all that bad. Once you get the momentum going, it's just a matter of keeping up with the drum. There's hardly any force to it. A lot of people, they'll kind of jerk that handle, and you don't want to do it. You just want to pick up the speed that it's going and just keep the momentum going. What little bit we have extracted, there's 5 frames, I forget. Anyhow, that's that much that has come out of the few frames that we extracted. It's still hanging on the side of the tank. It all drained down to the bottom. That super will weigh probably 45-50 pounds with the frames that I have in there. And in that 2 supers, I should fill up a 5-gallon bucket of honey, which is roughly 60 pounds, besides all the drainage that I get. I'm going to open the gate valve on the tank now and let some of the honey out, because I don't like too much of it to get in above the center point of it. So that's all liquid gold. And I'll probably have to regulate that. You can see all the pieces of wax that this is going to catch. Some people like a little bit of the wax in the comb honey, but I don't patronize that few, because a lot of people say, oh, what's that in that honey? I like clear honey. I take another bucket and I put this in here with this strainer. I don't know whether that's going to work, but anyhow, the process of this, there's still probably particles going through that screen there, but it won't go through there. That's pretty fine. So that, after I use that, I'll run that through. The bucket, this is a bucket rack. If I'm draining from one bucket to the other, I don't have to stand there and hold it. I can take the other bucket full of honey, or what little bit of honey I haven't used, and just let it drain and forget it. It'll drain out. And I don't have to stand there and hold it. I got other things to do. But that's the process of that. And this has got a little gate in there also, which I would be using today, but there's a little O-ring. There's a little O-ring in here, and by me shutting it off and on, that O-ring gets flat, and it gives the honey a chance to leak. And you don't want that, because one drop of honey is a pain in the neck. We can still spin honey while that's still draining. That's all comb honey, that one. And I'll show you what I'll do with that one. These are my little containers that I put the honey in for the comb honey, just for comb honey. That's all I do that for. And this, I'll get the one that we had pretty nice. This one. Okay. This I'll take and lay on the frame here, and I'll take a knife. Again, I'll try and get the size of the box, which would be about right there. And while it's laying on that tray, I'm going to cut all 3 of them. And there's another form of comb honey. We call it chunk honey. Now, in some of the frames, not particular this one, you have a little excess of wax, which I won't have on this one. Some of the bigger frames, if you go with comb honey, you have a lot of excess wax in the honey, so we call that chunk honey. And I have the jars, but I don't have any of what I want to do with that. So I'm just going to cut these and put them in the container and I come in under here, and then I put that in that honey right there, and that's all ready to go. And then I have the plastic lid. Yeah, life, we don't take life serious enough. And here's a little insect, and he goes out and he forages and he gets nectar and he brings pollen back to the hive, and he takes all that nectar and that pollen, and he in his manufacturing of his body, he brings this comb or this honey out. And it's remarkable how they do that, and how remarkable it is how many trips that bee has to take to just get one little teaspoon of nectar to make honey. And it's almost like a cow. Now you take a cow, he eats green grass and gives white milk. So in his manufacturing, he gives white milk. And a bee does the same thing. He brings back the pollen and the nectar, and he transforms it and makes the honey. In my order, I've been playing around with raising a few queens, so I have never marked them, so I decided I think I'll buy something that I can mark the queen. So when I do get a queen, or if I want to mark her, I bought this little queen cage and a little marking outfit. Got a little plunger that goes up inside the tube. The bee is up in here, and I'll take and push that plunger up real easy till I get her up into the screen here. And then I have a little marking pen, which is going to be the year 16. It's going to be white. And I'll just take and put a little white dot back on her thorax, right on the back of her head. And then I'll leave her there for a while till that pen dries, because if I would take her out right away, they would probably eat that paint off of her, or the ink, or whatever the material is. But that's how that works. And I'm going to try and practice up on a few drones and just see how that works, which I'm sure it's going to work. It looks like it should, because all she has to do is get her in the right spot and mark that square. Just to show you how different shades of the pollen and the nectar that they forage on and what you get. Now that's one shade of honey that I have. Well, I don't have any more, but this is the last one I have. But look at the difference in the two. Just in the times that they had foraged and the times that I've taken the super off. Now just look what it is. If I can compare, which I don't, I can't compare. But see the difference in the two right there? How dark my right hand is to my left hand. So, but it's all good honey, and might be a little different flavor, but to me, there's not that much difference in it. But I do love the honey. I do love to play with the honeybees. But there, look at the two there. We not only get honey from the honeybee, there's a lot of other products from the bee that produces. There's so many things that they use, the beeswax. There's people that makes the lip balm now out of that. And they have the wax candles, which I don't fool with. I don't fool with the bee balm, but it's another product that you can get from the bees. I have an extractor outside, and this is what the sun does when you put the beeswax in. It melts it down, and I've had these little containers. Not only this type, I got a bigger one. And then if you want to, you can refine it. I run this through the extractor a couple times, and the more you run it through, the lighter it gets, which is probably about what you'll see there. And that's another product. That's a a lubricant. You can mix it up with turpentine. You can make furniture polish out of it. If anybody's interested and see this video and that they would like to come by, and I'll be more than glad to show them through the hive, just as what we did just a few minutes ago. And you're more than welcome at my place anytime. And I enjoyed what I just did, and I hope the younger generation sees it and proceeds on with beekeeping, because we do need the bees.